Hey there, it's Renessa Boley Layne, and I want to welcome you to another conversation on creating your perfect work. We are in the middle of our Love and Work Summit. So if you have missed any part of the interview series, make sure you go back and catch up, especially on those conversations that resonate most deeply with you. Because whether you're married, single, coupled up, dating, craving love, or running as fast away from love as you possibly can, there is something in this series that will bless you. And in today's conversation, we're going to hit y'all who are running as fast away from love as you possibly can. So, we're going to be talking about how independent women hide from love and the excuses we give for why. And so, it's interesting because I was sharing with this beautiful woman on the screen who I will be introducing in just a moment. But um, this has been a day, it's been a day. So I was getting ready to have my conversation with Bex Burton, who I will introduce in just a moment. So I'm getting all prepared, I'm getting ready. I go to get my face all set up. All my makeup is in my husband's car, like eyeliner, mascara, foundation, lipstick, lip liner, like got nothing. Nothing. I'm looking through old bags. You go through the old bags of like makeup that you're like, this is so carcinogenic and just erupt. Like there's just nothing. And so my earring broke, and so I had no glue, super glue. So I'm like literally taping it with packing tape. So if this falls off, then y'all know exactly. Like, are you kidding? Are you kidding? And Bex is going on this fabulous adventure trip in a couple of days. So rescheduling is just not in the question. And I was like, look, we're just going, au natural. We're going to do all we can do. But here's the deal. I was just like, and she was like, what are you doing? I was like, I have better days. But the point of that is, years ago, that would have been something that would have literally just taken me sideways, whether it was insecurity about how you're showing up and are you your best and this and that. And at this point, I'm like, the show must go on, but I'm so excited about bringing this content to you. I'm so excited about the conversation with Bex that at the end of the day, the service is all that mattered. And whether I'm greasy or, shiny or whatever might be going on the screen, I know that there's still value to come out of this conversation. And so you lean in and you step into your opportunities and you continue to give. Oftentimes we shrink back when we look at our lives or who we think we are or what we think we have to offer, whether it's in love, as we'll be talking about today, but there's so many parallels to how we show up in work as well. It might not be the best day. This might not have been the perfect moment. This might not have been the best deliverable in the marketplace. And so there are opportunities that are right in front of you, and yet we shrink back because we feel like we're not the best version of ourselves. And so I'm giving you the best I got today. It's going to be awesome. Um, and my hope is that you'll begin to see how those parallels work for you as well in your work in your life, because we're oftentimes given opportunities that we feel ill-equipped for, or we don't feel worthy of, or all of these kinds of things. And some of them may not even be true. And the moments of destiny are created when you decide to step in and lean in, and not with insecurity or shrinking back or dimming your light, but really as bright and as amazing as you can possibly be, despite what might be a limitation, cosmetic or otherwise, right? And so that's why I'm so excited about this conversation, because we can be running from love without knowing that we're running, because in our minds we might just be protecting ourselves, right? And oftentimes women have no clue that the behavior that we demonstrate in love, or lack thereof, is parallel to how we might be showing up in the marketplace. And I think as driven women, and we'll talk about this with Bex, we get really good at masking our true feelings. We get really good at masking our intent. We get really good at masking the honest narrative of what's going on in our heart. And we can make a lot of excuses. And as a former mentor of mine used to say, excuses are just well-planned lies, right? And so we can create a whole story around why we're not available for deeper intimacy. And it'll sound great. It'll sound great to us. It'll sound great to other people. But in reality, we're running away and we're putting off what could be an amazing opportunity. And so while this conversation today is kind of geared towards single women, if you're married, if you're in a committed relationship, this totally applies. And so if this intro is resonating with you, stick in, because there are some gems in here for you. And so this amazing soul who is sharing the screen with me is none other than Bex Burton. And Bex is a trauma-informed certified life coach. She helps independent women attract and grow lasting love without sacrificing who they are and what they want out of life. And after painfully hitting some walls of her own love life for over a decade, Bex committed to the study and the practice of lasting love. And so today she enjoys a deeply connected partnership of 11 years with the man of her dreams, with whom she is going on a fabulous adventure trip. Couple of days. And so I'm going to live vicariously through both of you. But through her signature programs, like she's got a program called Your Majesty. She's got a program called Core Joy Living, which I just love. And she helps other independent women do the same, to attract and grow really healthy, lasting, fulfilling love lives. And so I'm really excited about that. But what's really cool about Bex is that her coaching programs go beyond talk. And talk is good, but she inspires deeply transformational experiences like through movement and mindfulness and compassionate behavior exploration, spectacle dance, performances, immerse like these glamping trips. Like she does all that. So if you're that kind of person who likes to do all the things, like Bex and what she offers is something that you definitely want to connect to. She's down to earth. You're going to learn so much from her. And so with that, I just want to welcome you to the show. Thank you for being a part of our conversation.
Wow. Thank you so much, Renessa, for that beautiful introduction. And hello, everybody listening. It's a pleasure and a privilege to be here with you today. Thank you.
Absolutely. So, for many coaches, Bex, our message becomes our message, right? And so obviously I help high achieving women go from bored, burned out, and unfulfilled to highly paid doing work they love. Why? Because I was that chick that was bored, burned out, and unfulfilled 15 years. Like, so the mess becomes the message. You had a mess of your own in your love life for a really long time, that I think listeners would really benefit from. Tell us your story.
Sure. Well, the gist of my love mess, it was that I would end up in relationships out of inspired by the wrong reasons, essentially. I would be bored, I would be lonely, my ego needed to be served, and therefore I would seek the attention of men, and I was pretty good at it, and therefore would get into relationship. And then very shortly, within a year or two, I would decide that this relationship no longer serves me. I'm outgrowing this person. I feel trapped. I feel stifled. I feel bored. I feel suffocated. Get me the hell out. And without any skills or tools, I would, what I call, flip the table and run away from the relationship, leaving flames behind me.
Carnage.
Totally. And I did this for just about a decade. And when that happened the third time, I recognized that my longest standing relationship was no more than about 2.5 years. And about that 2-year mark, I would get those itchy feet. And this kept happening. And when it happened for the third time with 3 very different men, I finally woke up and realized I am the one in the middle. I'm the common denominator. There must be something that I'm doing to contribute to the situation. And that was about 15 years ago. And that was when I dedicated to study love and study what it was that I was doing that was causing so much heartache, not only for myself, but those that I would get entangled with and, break hearts.
Yeah.
And it's a humbling path to recognize that we're the mess in the middle. Yet at the same time, when we keep on experiencing the same results, it really is true that we are the one that is contributing to this pattern, and we are the sole responsible party for making any kind of change if we want to experience something different.
Yeah. What I really appreciate about your story, and I didn't know this coming in, we've had conversations, but I actually didn't know that I didn't know the details of your story. Oftentimes women come into situations as, oftentimes we hear women coming into situations as the victim. Like, oh, I'm having all these bad, relationship experiences. This is what, the men are doing to me, or this, I'm the one that's on the other side of the, the receiving end of the dumping, or the, whatever. And so what I love about this, your story, is that you're the one who's like, I'm inflicting a flaming bag of doo-doo on folks. Like, I am at cause here. And many of us are at cause in our situations. And whether it's in the love space, there's oftentimes parallels in the workspace. We're jumping from one situation to the next. Oh, this company didn't work out, or this manager didn't work out, or blah, blah, blah. And at some point in time, we become the common denominator, right? And you were like, these are three different men. And so it's not like it's the personality type, or the this or that or the other. And yes, they're fallible, they're imperfect. I'm sure they have their contributions to your relationship dynamic as well. But again, I appreciate it, because this becomes an opportunity for some folks listening in to say, wow, maybe it is me. Or there's an element that I bring to this relationship, no matter, who I may not be at fault always, but I am responsible in some way. And so really taking accountability and responsibility for you, I think, is a really refreshing conversation to have.
Yeah.
So you work with independent women. And so certainly this audience resonates with that. And so from what you've seen in your own life, what you've seen in, the women that you've worked with, how would you describe a woman who is making herself unavailable for love? Like, what does that archetype look like? Give us kind of a visual for who that is, what she thinks, how she, all of that.
Sure, absolutely. And this is my story too. So, the women that I describe, she's not alone. There are many of her out there like her. And even still to this day, in 11 years deep in my loving relationship, we still have these tendencies. I believe that the patterns that we have, our attachment styles, our wounds, they're with us for life. And I hate to be a Debbie Downer about it, but and it's so the work that I do with women is not about changing or eradicating these patterns, these wounds, these beliefs, and these attachments, but rather shifting the relationship that we have with them, gaining a clearer understanding, so that we can actually work with them and have the relationship that we desire. But to describe the woman that is independent and a little fearful of love, a little bit avoidant of love, first and foremost, she's got sort of a vibe, a lone wolf vibe, where she's not really receptive or open to love. She is got this air, this attitude that she's got everything covered. She don't need no help, and she can do it all by herself. My mother will remind me of this story. I told a babysitter, I think when I was 2 or 3, that I could comb my own damn hair. So these women have this streak, they probably have had this independent streak since childhood. This is just something that she does. She's a doer, she's a mover and a shaker. And, you can kind of vibe, test the waters yourself. If you have a complex relationship with asking for help, if that resonates with you, then you probably have this vibe that you're a lone wolf, that you've got everything handled and sorted.
Yep.
Women who that I serve also fall into the category of self-sabotage, and self-sabotage meaning like she's operating often on assumptions. She will read a situation and believe she understands what is being said to her, in the subtext, the unspoken, and she will make unilateral decisions because it is safer for her to cut and run. It is safer for her to protect herself and make this decision than to enter into what I like to call the butt pucker zone, the very scary territory of having open and direct conversations with the person she's relating with. So rather than leaning in, getting curious, and finding solutions, she's making assumptions and creating those solutions for herself. I talked a little bit about protection. You touched on it earlier too. And it's funny because at the surface, this independent woman is very protective of her time, of her energy. She's up to big things. She's creating great impact in the world. And she, will very often say she doesn't have a lot of time to date. She doesn't want to waste her time. So there is some protection on that level. But when we dig a little bit deeper, when we start to pull the layers back, we also understand that she's been hurt in the past, either by, her family of origin, somebody in that circle, or as we expand out into her life, maybe it's a previous boyfriend or another relationship where she's been burned and she's been hurt. So there's this other layer of protection where she doesn't want to be in that position again. She doesn't want to be vulnerable. She doesn't want to take risks. She doesn't want to put herself in the position of being rejected again. And it's very scary to be in a dating practice with all of those things at risk. So she will turn to where she is safe, where she is celebrated, where she feels immediate gratification and immediate impact, which is her career. So I see a lot of very successful women who have climbed the ranks, whether that be in the corporate environment or in an entrepreneurial endeavor, because that is where she feels power. That's where she feels more control. And whenever we feel like we have control, which is clearly a myth, but whenever we feel like we have control, it just feels so much safer. It feels like we have just more autonomy, and it's all a myth, but that is the truth of that situation. Two more elements that really qualify this independent woman who is running for love or protecting herself. She's got really high standards. And there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. In fact, the harder that she has worked to gain the position, the status, and the life that she enjoys, absolutely she should have high standards. She should be looking for somebody who is her mental, emotional, and financial equal. She should not be settling. Absolutely not. But it's a bit of a double-edged sword having high standards in this modern dating life where there's so many apps and online opportunities to meet people and that come with their own complexities, that it sort of breeds what I call this eye roll energy about dating. I speak with a lot of women who just wish they could skip the dating part and just get to the relationship part, and that whole messy middle of the dating experience brings up this eye roll energy where she just doesn't wanna, she doesn't want to go through the steps. She doesn't want to be in the process. She just wants to get to that juicy outcome of that yummy, amazing, mutual, reciprocal relationship. And there's another element for sure of this independent, high achieving woman where, she's got certain expectations of how long it should last, like how much time she should spend in her dating life before it yields results, before she's got that amazing partner, especially if she has experienced a high level of success in other areas of her life, especially if, again, in other areas of her life, she hasn't suffered, she hasn't had extraordinary challenges, she hasn't had a lot of rejection where things have come a little bit easier for her, and she experiences this professional success or whatever success she has. When we have that very contrasting experience in another area of our life, like love and relationships, it's painful, it's humbling, and nobody wants to stick around in the areas of life where we don't feel successful. So, this expectation that it should be easy, that it should come naturally. And when it doesn't, she starts to turn her back on love and really, again, focus on the areas of life that do come naturally and easy for her. And for a lot of these women, it is her career.
Yeah. It's really interesting. You've used the word humbling a few times, talking about yourself and just talking about the process of relationship. And it is so true. And I will often joke that if you ever want to be humbled, have a kid, because having a child will humble you. You think you're trying to figure it all out. And relationships will humble you as well, because other people don't see the world as you see it. Other people don't see situation. Like, y'all could be looking at the exact same situation and have a completely polar opposite perspective on the exact same facts, right? And so the mere idea that you're unable to control certain elements can be daunting. And it also releases you to a level of surrender and openness and curiosity that many of us are not conditioned over time to appreciate, right? But something you said about high standards is interesting, because oftentimes how it's like, if I'm quick to judge other people, then I will have a fear that when I engage new people, they're judging me. Why? Because I know I judge other people. And so what you do and what you put out into the world, when you're dishing it, you don't really think anything of it. But then when you're on the other side, or the perceived other side of something, it can create such a tremendous insecurity and distrust, because you know the level of judgment that maybe you put out to the world, in your own private thoughts or moments or whatever. I think the same thing happens when we have such high standards of other people, and we have less grace on their journey, or where they have come, or where they are in the spectrum of their journey. We have less compassion on where that person has to grow, or, gets to change. And so when we have really high expectations and high standards of others, when we are under the microscope, or we perceive ourselves to be under the microscope, it creates an insecurity, because we assume they are judging us in the same way that we might be judging them or judging ourselves. And so then you end up either protecting yourself and not even engaging in the relationship, or sabotaging it, or whatever the case might be, because this person doesn't fit my pedestal, so clearly I must not be on somebody else's pedestal as well. Why? Because I'm putting that out in the world as well, if that kind of makes sense. And so there's growth that happens on both sides of this coin, that impact even whether or not somebody meets whatever, the appropriate, because our standard might not even be realistic. And again, you should have preferences. You should have, commonalities, and, shared visions and shared goals and all that. Don't get me wrong. That's important. But when we start to look at our standards, it's really, really important to put them in perspective. So you talk about, for some women, this idea of love and work becomes kind of either or. Like, if I'm not good at this love thing, then I'm going to just focus on my career, or I'm going to, whatever. It's either or. You're a proponent, though, Bex, that it's a both and women really can have it all. They can thrive in their career business, and they can have a really amazing, juicy, delicious, love life as well. Kind of break that down for us. What are strategies? What are tools? How can women go about really pursuing both? Because this audience is not one that's like, I've got this amazing relationship, and yet I've settled in my career to raise my kids and blah, 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 blah. And for some, that is the choice, but that is the both and choice, right? And so you want to make the both and choice that is amazing for you. But how do you begin to navigate through that process? What are the strategies? What are the tools?
Sure. Well, I'll touch back on what you were just speaking about with the high standards, and the fear of other people judging us the way that we might judge other people. And one of the very first places that I begin with the clients that I work with is our relationship with ourselves. Because if we are judging other people against our standards, chances are we're judging ourselves for the standards that we hold for ourselves. And I would say 9 out of 10 women that I work with have what I call a fierce inner punisher, which, has many different names: an inner critic, an inner judge. I call her an inner punisher, because that's the environment that I came from. If I didn't live up to certain standards, I'd get punished. I'd get spanked, I get beat, I get ignored, whatever it was not good, it was painful. But that was how I learned to push myself to achieve and to succeed, until that way of being pushed me into burnout and depression. So I had to reorganize my entire relationship with myself so that it was so that it was peaceful, so that it was offering myself benefit of the doubt, and that grace, and that just that softness. And it's that softness that helps us relate with other people and, have this both and. But to have the both and, we need to be driven in loving ways in our professional life. We need to be somewhat driven in our romantic life. Yet at the same time, we need to be able to switch gears. We need to be able to switch from that drive, from that go, 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 to that softness, that receptivity. And one of the ways that I help clients cultivate that is just simply through the lens of gratitude. We kind of start there and we build off of that.
Yeah.
Gratitude for the world around us, gratitude for our circumstances, gratitude for ourselves, self-celebration, self-honoring.
Yeah.
That relationship with ourself is it's just foundational. It's primary. It is one of the very basic ways that we can begin to open up space to have that both and. Without that soft, loving relationship with self, we are not going to be able to create that space for another person, let alone a loving partner.
Absolutely. Can we pause there for a moment? Because I think this is a really important point to punctuate. Even, there are women who might be perceived as more aggressive. They'll tell it like it is, they tell it straight, they, all of that. And then there are women who on the surface appear to either be more passive or they're softer in appearance. Just because you show up and operate in the world from a soft place does not mean that you have grace on yourself. Still be very hard on yourself. You can still be very critical of yourself, even though you present with honey, to the rest of the world. And so for many of us, that whole idea of inner punisher, inner critic, whatever, words resonate with you, is so important. I don't know that I have come across one single woman that I've had the privilege of working with, present company included, for whom that dance is not alive and true in their world. And in my space, it's around how they're showing up in their career and what they think, or their business, or what they think is possible for them from a perfect work standpoint. But that same punisher shows up in your love life as well. And it'll dictate whether or not you think you are worthy of this relationship, or if this person saw all the mess that I'm really bringing to the table, if they really knew X, Y, like you have all of that first and foremost, you get to have grace on for yourself, and you get to heal for yourself. I mean, I've come from business failures and different things, and you can carry that shame, or you can carry those things into the next venture, which means that you'll only go so far in your career. You'll only go so far and take so much risk because you don't want the pain of X, Y, or Z. The parallels happen in love as well. And so recognizing that before you go external, or not before, but at least in parallel, as you're going external for this relationship, that you're able to look inside and heal some of those other aspects. Because as I do to myself, I'm also going to do to the next man, the next person on the other end. Because wherever I go, there I am. So I wanted to kind of pause and punctuate on that point, because I think it's brilliant, it's important. But many of us don't see ourselves sometimes as we are, because we judge that part of us as being really bad. Yeah. And so being able to see it, acknowledge it, and then heal from it without judgment will allow us to be able to not be held back so much, whether it's in love or it's in work.
Yeah.
Please, next.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for punctuating that, because again, like I said, it's so foundational. It's one of the very places that I begin with most of my clients. And then moving on from there, when we think about like having it all, right? The career, the relationship, the family, if one so desires, there for women who kind of desire that but don't believe that it's possible, they're maybe protecting themselves for a number of different reasons. But at the same time, what's really keeping them back on that level is the belief that it's possible, or the belief that it's possible for them. So another aspect of the work that I do is evidence gathering, to look around and see different women in their lives who have what they want, to gather evidence that what you want exists, that it is
Yeah.
possible. And, that could also, bring up what we call compare and despair. But at the same time, it's a really powerful process to just, look around and see that, okay, maybe the people in my immediate family don't model the kind of life that I want. So who does? I think about my dentist. She owns her own practice. She has a husband. She has 3 children. She's an Ironman triathlete. I mean, she is like a top performer, and she has it all. Yet at the same time, there's not a part of her that believes that she can't. She really works with that part of herself that believes that she can have what she wants. So looking at our belief system is another big aspect of the work that I do to help women have the life that they want, whether it's the relationship or whether it's that both and. So we look at the stories, we look at, well, my job is so demanding, or, well, if I get the promotion that I want, then I'm not going to have time for dating. And we look at different ways to poke holes in those stories, because if, I'm a firm believer that if the desire lives in our heart, then there are at least 3 possible solutions to remedy that desire. They may be unconventional. You may be finding yourself in a long distance relationship, or in a together living apart situation, or a child-free situation, but the truth is that if that desire is in you to have the thriving career and to have a loving, mutually reciprocal romantic relationship, it's absolutely possible. We just have to get to the root of what are the beliefs that you hold, what are the stories that you tell yourself that keep you from being in romantic activity. And we can talk a little bit more about that shortly, but there's a number of different ways that we hold ourselves back. And I think that for most independent women who have a thriving career, time is their biggest objection to involving themselves in romantic activity.
I love this because there's 2 points that you raised that really hit home. And I think the first is evidence, right? And I have these conversations with women often. They'll come and they'll want to do some kind of pivot in their career, or whatever the case may be, and they'll say, well, I don't see anybody who's doing, or there's not a lot of people who are doing X, or there's not a lot of people who've made this transition to Y, or whatever the case. And I'm like, you don't need 15 opportunities. You need one. Like, you need one good company, one good culture, one ideal role. You don't need 15 opportunities. And so oftentimes I will say, and like, go find one person who's doing what you want to do. One person who's demonstrating this shift, or whatever the case. Why? Because if one person can do it, then that means that it's also possible for you. You don't need to have 20 people who have done exactly what you want to do in order for you now to get the confidence to say it's possible for you. Right? Doesn't mean that it's easy, doesn't mean that it's conventional, doesn't mean that it's mainstream, doesn't mean any of that, right? Having an amazing, jazzed up, fulfilling, relationship is not mainstream. It's not mainstream. And so the fact that you have that evidence, I think absolutely all you need is one example that it's possible. The other bit that you mentioned about desire, it warms my heart, but I also believe that I'm a firm believer that God gives us the desires of our heart. And so some people might mean that, okay, well, your wish is my command kind of thing. I'm like, no, if the desire is planted in you, and desire just of its, by definition, is of God. And so if the desire is planted in you, I firmly believe that it is meant for you. Not every person in the world has a real desire for intimate relationship. They don't have some people have no desire to be married. Now, there could be underlying reasons for that, fine. But there are some people for whom that really is not, they don't have any hangups. There's not trauma. It is just not in the path and the purpose for their life. And there's no desire there. Right. But the fact that there's a desire for you, I believe that is meant to be for you. It's not right, not wrong, not better, not any of that. But the mere fact that this is the thing even in career spaces and workspaces, I'll share with women, I'm like, I have no desire to do what you say you want to do.
Mhm.
Why? Because that's not what I'm meant to do. It's not what I'm born to do. It's not where I belong in the marketplace. The fact that you've got this itching in your spirit to do it means that there is a call on the other side of that to support you. And so for those who are listening to Bex, if the only takeaway that gets you to put another foot in the game here and to give it another go is that it's still a desire of your heart, be encouraged by what she said about desire and say, you know what, I might be fumbling through this. I might not have gotten it right the first time, but the desire is there and that desire is meant to be fulfilled. Let that be all the confidence that you need to pick up your face and
Mhm.
go at it again, improve your skill set and go
Right.
at it again,
Yeah.
right? Any other strategies, tools? You talk a lot about IRL tools, in real life tools, which I really like, especially in this day and age. Tell people what you mean about that and what are examples of IRL tools for dating.
Yeah, absolutely. So, when we think of modern dating, we often think of, dating online and dating through online, dating apps, phone-based apps, which I'm a big proponent of. Don't get me wrong. I met my husband through an online dating platform over a decade ago. But in that decade, things have changed. The onset of swipe-based apps have really changed the landscape of online dating because when we whittle it down, Scott Galloway, who's I believe a Stanford professor, he says that these image-based apps whittle humanity down to these two-dimensional categories. For women, it's beauty, and for men, it's whether or not they can garner finances well into the future. So it's very interesting, so I believe that dating apps work very well for some women. And sorry.
I
Oh,
didn't say
sorry.
anything. No, no.
They work for some women. They work better for some women, and they don't work as well for other women. And that's not necessarily, in my opinion, strictly tied to beauty, but I'm a big believer that the way that we show up, IRL, which stands for in real life, is far more beautiful, powerful, and impactful than the way we show up online. And I have a lot of evidence to back this up, whether, be it anecdotally or other researched evidence. But the truth is that when we meet people in real life, there's really no comparison against meeting somebody in the three-dimensional flesh, because we get their nuances, we get their body language, we get pheromones, we get, facial expressions that may be missed in photographs, things like that. And there's just more of an opportunity for synchronous conversation when we meet people IRL. I'll give you an example. Just last week, I had a client who was going out for pizza with her kids on Pi Day 314, and she just started chatting up this guy in line. There was a very long line at the pizza shop. She started talking to this guy, and lo and behold, 10 minutes later, she's checking out. He's already got his pizza. She's about to leave, and he comes up to her and gives her his phone number and name and says, "Hey, I would really love to continue this conversation if you would be up for that." So she's got a phone number, she's got a name, and
And
all
she got pizza.
and she got pizza. Yes, she did. And the reason I believe that was so successful was because, she's in her natural environment. She's not going out of her way, and not that that's not part of it. We can employ what I call self-love dates, where we do take ourselves out maybe once or twice a month, as if we're taking ourselves out on a date. But in this case, she's just in her everyday regular routine. She may have even been in sweats. I don't know what she was wearing, but her magnetism, her outgoingness, and her just her her joy was the magnet that inspired this man to give her his number. And this pertains to introverts and extroverts. Of course, introverts may need a little bit more resource and skill and tools behind the outward activity, but there's just something really powerful when we make that connection in real life. I was talking about having synchronous conversations. this is really something that has been lost with the advent of online and app-based dating, because we're texting. Now, granted, there's still a lot of texting when you meet somebody in real life, but when we're first getting to know somebody and it's all text-based, it's like we are standing on a pedestal, we're giving a speech, and then we're stepping down to listen to their speech. There's no real like synchronous back and forth. There's no dialogue. It's more like isolated monologue versus isolated monologue. But when we meet somebody in real life, there's the opportunity to laugh at what somebody says, in the moment. And there's just this different dynamic. There's this different electricity that is possible by putting ourselves out there and meeting people in real life.
So how then, so if I'm the listener and I'm like, this is great. And so what am I supposed to do? Right? Because online dating, there's a process for that. There's something I subscribe to. There's a platform that's created. There's a volume of people on the other side, so I just kind of have to show up and participate, right? In real life, I still need a sample size, right? I still I could be available, but how then do I start to create opportunity to connect to people in real life? Like, what are things that I could choose from to actually make that a reality for me?
Yeah, that's such a great question. I have so many answers, more answers than we have time for, but a couple of things, a couple of guidelines are: high quality men are everywhere. We don't have to be in a certain specific place to meet them. We ourselves have to be open, available, receptive, and paying attention. So one of the things that I work with clients on is our outward engagement, our receptivity. So I was talking about the medicine for lone wolf syndrome. If we have a hard time asking for help, that's actually one of the strategies, that we can ask people around us for help and start building that muscle of not only engaging with other people, but inviting them into our world. There's so many, my mind is flooded with things that I want to share with you. So I want to pick the most potent things. Creating impact is another way that we can consider moving through the world when we're thinking about IRL dating practice. And I call it practice because there's no getting it right. There's no getting it wrong. It's just practice and building the muscle. So creating impact. I was listening to the most recent Chris Rock special, and there's this section towards the end where he's talking about women, and it's so wonderful. And he's saying that there is nothing more powerful on this planet than feminine beauty. And it doesn't matter if you are conventionally beautiful or unconventionally beautiful. It does not matter. But there is nothing more powerful than a woman's beauty. And that includes her softness, her receptivity, her feminine energy. And so when we're out in the world and we're trying to do this IRL practice and connecting with others, making impact, making impact can be something as simple as flashing a smile to somebody. The other thing and so making impact is just improving their life in some small way, shape, or form, in some small gesture. And that can be many things that I won't get into right now. But another thing to consider is really being unattached from the outcome. And this is where a lot of my clients get tripped up, because they're going to reserve that IRL. They're going to reserve their feminine energy. They're going to reserve that beautiful flash of a smile for only the men who look like they're rich, who are hot, like tall, hot, with the common, the 6'6", pack, 6 feet tall. The truth is that your person, the person that you end up with, may not be all of those things. And when, it's like doing sales, right? We don't want to, just show up on a sales call with a warm lead without having any practice of our sales call. So, because we're going to fumble, we're going to get tongue tied, and gosh, are we going to get tongue tied if we wait to have impact on a good looking man? I mean, who doesn't get tongue tied speaking with somebody who's 6 feet tall and hot? So the idea here is not reserving that practice for just the top 1% man, but to be engaging and loving and, moving through life with this lens of love that I call it, with everybody. I had a client who has this this somewhat elderly neighbor who loves to shovel her walk for her and shovel her driveway. And it's so very sweet, but he's a little, undesirable. He's got crooked teeth. He's got somewhat of a smell and, the kind of ear hair that you can see from 10 feet away. And she's like, I don't want to flirt with him, and it's definitely understandable. At the same time, there's nothing wrong with being kind, soft,
And loving. Yeah.
and generous with those around you. Again, to build that muscle so that it's just so very natural when the next time you get on the train and you bump into somebody and you turn around and it's this good looking man and, you bat your eyes at him and say, wow, I was going to say, I'm sorry, but now I'm feeling inclined to say, I meant to do that. Hi, how's your day going? Flash that smile. And now you're in a conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. I love all of it. And it at the end of the day, it boils down to go be happy. Like, find your joy, find your spark, and give it. Right. When you come, I remember I had a conversation. This was a networking conversation I had with someone, and at the end of the conversation, I was like, oh, how might I be able to support you? And this was a male. And so I was like, keep in mind if there's anything I can, help you with now or in the future, just let me know. And he's like, I'm good. My cup overflows. He's like, my cup overflows. And I remember saying that, and it left such a mark on me, because when you can walk through the world with a cup that's overflowing, that doesn't necessarily need to be filled up in order for you to show up. You get filled up, like you will get filled up. But if I don't need this date to fill me up, or I don't need this person to fill me up, you go into Bex's point unhooked, and you're just able to overflow with abundance, with goodness, with grace, with generosity, with love, with kindness, with support, with whatever. It is such an attractive quality, especially in a society that is so oppressed and so tired and so burned out and so cynical and so everything. And that when you get to be a cool glass of water to somebody, like, you are very attractive to them. Independent of how you may look or what you think is, beautiful about you or not, or, I'm overweight, I'm underweight, like all of the insecurities that we walk around with, but it's that confidence and that joy. And when you're able to find that, or be that, not find it, be it, it is so much easier to attract what it is that you want, whether it's in career, business, love, or otherwise. And it's a lot easier to find a job when you have one that you're, decently satisfied with, than it is when you're thirsty trying to find, something else. And so I love that. And the only thing that I would add is, as Bex was talking about asking for help in this dating space, ask for help. Like, literally, do you know anybody who, like, I'm open. Do you know anybody who? Do you have any, really great friends that, and that could seem like an embarrassing thing to do, or, it's not, because guess what? Like, oh, I've been trying to find somebody great for my nephew, such and such, or whatever. It's like, put it out there. Again, be completely unhooked, be completely confident, be completely happy with who you are, and all of that. And then people are excited about connecting you, because it's like, man, she's a catch. Such and such needs to meet her. Right? Why? Because you are so busy loving your life. And I think for many of us, it's so hard to be busy minding our business that it infringes upon so many other aspects. And so with that, I know Bex has a lovely giveaway that she wants to give to this audience, and I'm going to open it up for her to describe what that is. But any opportunity that you have to connect to her community, do it. Any opportunity. So whatever she's giving away free, you go get it. Just go get it. Because she sends out great content. She sends out great emails. She has great opportunities for you to connect to yourself and others, and these skill sets that you want to learn and employ in your dating relationship. If it resonates, connect to her in every way possible. So at that, Bex, what you got? And then we'll direct people where they can access it.
Sure. Yeah. So I have a free intentional dating toolkit. It is a collection of resources and tools to support the independent woman in navigating modern dating life and attracting the healthy, lasting love that she desires. And it includes a ton of tools. It's from strategic to energetic. There's where to meet high quality men, how to take the best photos for your online dating profile, how to dress for love.
Oh, yeah.
Color and style fiend. It also includes my top 10 reading recommendations for conscious relating. So if you're a reader, you're going to want to get this toolkit. And it also includes some of the resources that I actually use with my clients, like their dating and relationship review sheet to help us get even clearer on our vision, 6 questions to help you refine your non-negotiables. So if you feel like, if you're asking yourself, if you're picky, if you're just too picky, these 6 questions will help you discern between your absolute deal breakers and your nice to haves. The 36 questions that lead to love. This is a series of questions, research-backed questions. I know everybody wants this one, where when you ask them in order and you do this practice afterwards, there is a high likelihood of developing some level of intimacy between the 2 people engaged in the conversation. So there's tons of cool stuff in the Intentional Dating Toolkit. You can get it at bexburton.com/dating toolkit. And it is one of my favorite freebies that I have.
Yeah, love it. Just even the 36 questions that lead by itself would be enough. So if you're listening in, you must go there's a link somewhere in this video, there's a link on the page. Click the link, enter your name and email address, and you'll get immediate access to it. So Bex, I appreciate you. It's been so much fun. I appreciate all that you have poured into the audience, and I look forward to hearing all about your amazing trip when you're back. But thank you so much for sharing with us.
Great.
And with that, guys, we'll see you next time. Bye.